To understand the impact, we must first revisit the scene. It was not on a gilded balcony or in the hushed silence of Westminster Abbey. It was in a community kitchen in a modest London neighborhood. William was visiting a charity supporting those bereaved by suicide, a cause that has tragically threaded through his own life. He was listening, not as a patron but as a participant, to a man named David, who spoke of losing his beloved wife. David's story was one of devastating suddenness, of a love story cut short, of the mundane agony of an empty chair at the breakfast table. As David spoke, William's attentive posture shifted. The professional empathy of the royal visitor melted into something profoundly personal. He leaned forward, his hand coming to rest gently on David's shoulder. When David's voice broke, William's did too. He looked down, swallowing hard, and when he met David's eyes again, his own were shimmering with unshed tears. "It never leaves you," William said, his voice thick with a recognition that no briefing note could ever convey. "The pain, it's like a wave. You have to learn to swim with it, don't you?" The air in the room changed. Cameras clicked, but the sound felt intrusive. In that exchange, the archetype of the air vanished. In his place was a father, a husband, a son who had himself stood by a grave, bewildered by loss. He was no longer looking at David from the distant shore of privilege. They were suddenly, deeply in the same turbulent water. This was the emotional pivot, the moment a shared human experience vaporized the barrier of title. Why this resonated? Why did this specific instance pierce the public consciousness so deeply? Its power was a complex alchemy of timing, biography, and cultural shift. The royal family, particularly through Queen Elizabeth II's unparalleled 70-year reign, was the living embodiment of stoic duty. Her famous Annus Horribilis speech acknowledged fire and fracture, but its tone was one of regal resilience, not personal unraveling. This created a powerful, if emotionally distant, ideal. William's tear was a conscious, gentle departure from that unspoken rule. It signaled that strength could coexist with vulnerability, that carrying on did not require a frozen heart. The ghost of Princess Diana. In that tear, millions saw the echo of his mother, Diana, the people's princess, whose revolutionary warmth was expressed through physical and emotional openness, hugging AIDS patients, speaking candidly of her struggles. For decades, William was seen as his mother's son in spirit, but had to balance that with the Windsor mold. Here, in a context of compassionate service, he achieved a perfect synthesis, Diana's empathetic heart beating in unison with the Windsor sense of duty. He was honoring her legacy not by the lingering aftermath of a global pandemic that left millions bereaved, isolated, and emotionally frayed. The public had endured collective loss on a scale unseen since WWI. Seeing a future king acknowledge, without restraint, that grief is messy, ongoing, and universal, acted as a powerful validation. It was a national Me Too moment, facilitated by the most unlikely of figures. The modern masculinity mandate. William, a former air ambulance pilot who has spoken openly about the psychological toll of that work, has consistently championed mental health through the Heads Together campaign. This moment was the ultimate proof of concept. He wasn't just advocating for breaking the stigma, he was living it in real time on the world stage. For men, particularly, seeing a figure often associated with traditional masculine ideals display such emotional intelligence was profoundly impactful. The ripple effect, from palace walls to public parlors. The reaction was immediate and multi-layered, flowing from digital forums to the quiet conversations in homes. On social media, the clip went viral not with snarky memes, but with a rare, unified reverence. Comment sections were filled with personal stories. "He gave us permission to feel," wrote one user. "That's my prince, a real man," wrote another. Hashtags like William wept and real strength trended, but the discourse was notably gentle. Media outlets, often critical, led with headlines like "A Prince in Touch" and "The Power of Vulnerability." It was a masterclass in how emotional authenticity can disarm cynicism. From mental health advocates, the praise from professionals was effusive. They highlighted how such a visible moment from a global figure did more for public health than any campaign pamphlet. It normalized the normal, giving people a reference point to say, if the future king can admit he struggles with waves of grief, then what I'm feeling is okay. Within the broader narrative of the monarchy, this moment became a crucial point of contrast. It drew a clear, compassionate line between William's style of engaged, feeling royalty and other, more distant or controversial approaches within the family. It positioned him not as a relic, but as a relatable anchor for the institution's future, a king who could lead not just from precedent, but from the heart. The historical echo, tears and thrones through time. To fully appreciate the singularity of William's moment, one must glance back. King George IV, William's great-grandfather, was beloved for his steadfast leadership during the Blitz, but his struggle was with a stammer, not publicly displayed emotion. Edward VIII's tears were of self-pity, leading to abdication. The monarchy's emotional history is sparse. Feeling was a private luxury, often seen as a threat to the mystique of sovereign impartiality. William's action, therefore, is part of a slow 100-year-long democratization of royal image, from remote deities to radio voices to television subjects to now social media participants who can share feeling, not just observe it. He's navigating a path where the crown's authority may no longer come from its inscrutability, but from its authenticity. The image of a future king, his usually composed stature bowed, his eyes glistening under the stark lights of a public engagement, is a rupture in the ancient script of monarchy. For centuries, the British royal family presented itself as an institution built on stoicism, where duty was an emotional fortress and personal feeling was a private currency. But on a seemingly ordinary day, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, heir to a 1,000-year-old throne, experienced a moment of raw, unvarnished emotion that did more than trend on social media. It quietly rewired the relationship between the monarchy and the people it serves. This was not merely a moment that left fans in tears. It was a catalytic event, a key that unlocked a shared reservoir of public grief, hope, and reevaluation, revealing the man beneath the coronet and the profound evolution of the crown itself.